Mennas, the voice of Zin. This guy's story is pretty tragic. He was a priest that went on a mission to the Orcish land to spread the good news about Zin. The orcs didn't give him the welcome he was expecting. They captured him and demanded that he denounce Zin and claim that Bayog, the Orcish god, was the one true god. In an act of defiance, Mennas stayed silent, so the orcs decided to cut his tongue out. You can encounter a unique angel named Mennas roaming the depths, vaults, crypt, tomb, or pan. His description says that it's a mystery whether or not this angel is the Mennas of the legend, but I think it's pretty obvious that they're one and the same. I'm not sure exactly how things work in the Crawl universe, but I would make a guess that Zin angelized Mennas for his devotion and sacrifice. Mennas is a terrifying foe when encountered when playing Crawl. He is fast, can silence, and can do a ton of damage with his holy branded attacks, which do extra damage to undead and demonic beings. We won't need to worry about that though, because we're going to be playing as him. Well, sort of. Let me introduce you to the Crawl Cosplay Challenge. This is a series of community-run challenges that are themed after the various uniques in Crawl. We've been doing the Crawl Cosplay Academy previously on the channel, but I wanted to do a proper introduction for anyone new here. The way it works is that each challenge has a combination of species, background, and god that you have to play in order for your run to count. While you play this combo, you earn points by doing two things: following conducts and reaching milestones. The milestones are the same for every challenge, and you score them by doing things that you would normally do during a 3-rune game. This is just a measure of how far you get in your run, essentially. The second way you can score points is by following the 3 conducts of the challenges. These are usually a sort of guideline to restrict you to a specific playstyle. This typically is based on the unique's description or abilities like their stats, equipment, spells, etc. You earn 5 points per conduct that you follow, up to half the points you scored based on milestones. Each challenge also has 2 optional bonus challenges, which don't affect your number score, but grant you 2 stars next to your total score. These are typically quite a bit harder to achieve, and involve doing something pretty wacky, like a feat of skill or an extreme restriction. Going for these bonus challenges will typically end your run if you aren't careful. My goal is to get maximum points and stars for every challenge, not settling for any score lower than 50 points and 2 stars. So, let's talk about this week's challenge. We actually have choices to make when it comes to playing Mennas. He has to be a human, but you can choose to either start as a fighter or a monk. Although the fighter's probably the stronger choice here, I'm going to be going with monk because I already have a fighter win and I'd like to make some progress on grand player. We also have a choice between gods we can worship, which is pretty rare for one of these challenges. We can worship El-Avilion, Zin, or the Shining One, so the 3 good gods. These gods have a special mechanic where you can convert from any one of them to the other, and not only do you not face any penance for doing so, you also get to keep half your piety. This is great because we're going to need to be switching between them for a conduct. Speaking of, let's take a look at those conducts. Our first conduct is number 1, weapons. Don't use any 2-handed weapons. It's not too big of a deal. It's usually the right choice to go with a shield anyway, so I'm not upset by this in the slightest. Number 2, branch. Clear the crypt. I don't always clear the crypt when I do a 3-rune game, but it will certainly be a breeze to knock out if we're worshipping the Shining One while doing it. You can usually switch to the Shining One from any other god and be at max piety with them before you're even done with crypt, so this conduct should be pretty free. And finally, conduct number 3, gods. Reach 6 piety with all 3 of the available gods over the course of the game. Additionally, you should never intentionally go invisible, regardless of which god you are currently following. Okay, this one's pretty serious. This means that we're going to need to come up with a long-term strategy to get to max piety with each of the 3 gods. I think our plan is going to be to go with Ellie first in the early game, then switch to TSO around the time we want to clear crypt, then we'll go with Zin for the end game. My reasoning for this is I think Ellie's abilities are most likely to be useful in the early game, so we should probably start with them. We want to end with Zin because their abilities will be very helpful for a certain bonus challenge that we'll need to be completing during the orb run. That leaves TSO in the middle, which should be able to knock out by doing crypts alone. The exact timing on all that we'll have to just feel out during the context of our run. Alright, let's take a look at some of these bonus challenges. How hard could they possibly be? Bonus challenge number 1, silence is golden. Don't read any of the following scrolls other than use IDing. Blinking, fear, fog, immolation, summoning, teleportation, and torment. This one, wow, I am speechless. I have no idea how we're going to do this. The thought of winning a run without using a single blink or tele scroll, it just seems so unlikely to me. We're going to be doing this though. We won't settle for anything less than 2 stars. My thoughts about this is that we're probably going to need to rely heavily on our god abilities and our potions. Eliminating all but the most useful scrolls from our options means that we will need to predict when fights are going to be unwinnable before they even get to that point. This is definitely going to challenge us as a crawl player, but that's why we're here, right? Bonus challenge number 2, Mennas to Society. Don't enter the Orcish mines until you have the Orb of Zot. In the Orb Run, make your way down to Elf 3. You don't need to do anything other than get there. Zin will be extremely useful for this part of the game. The difficulty of this challenge, it's a little deceptive. It might seem like the Orb Run part of this challenge is the difficult part, but the real challenge is going to be the experience and loot we'll be missing out on by not going into Orc when we normally do. Orc 2 has 4 guaranteed shops that we won't get to see, and Elf is always nice to go into to get some extra experience and a shot at some powerful items. Unrans, artifact jewelry, scrolls of acquirement, we'll be giving it all up to do this challenge. All in all, I think we have our work cut out for us with this. I feel like the inability to use blinking scrolls, it's going to end a lot of these attempts that would have otherwise been winnable. The Shining One is one of my favorite gods, but I'm just not super familiar with the other 2 good gods. We'll be doing quite a bit of learning while trying to complete this challenge. Well, without further ado, let's get in.